What's going on? Today I'm going to be unboxing, or I should say unwrapping, these mud flaps. They are the Rokblokz Rally mud flaps for the 2015 Plus WRX. I'm going to give you a detailed view of the mud flaps. I'm going to give you a little bit of information on them, and then I'm going to move on to the installation. Some information, installation instructions with some pictures. These are not going to do. These are your mud flaps. They're pretty rigid. They're not like very thin, flappy mud flaps. They're pretty rigid, so I don't think you're gonna have issues with them bending too much. The mud flaps seem to be cut pretty good. There's no like jagged edges or little plastic pieces kind of sticking out. These are $99 mud flaps, and I went with these over the Rally Armor honestly just to save myself $72. I just didn't see much of a difference in them, and you know, for their purpose and the way that they look, I just figured $72 is $72. So they also have a version that's a short version that's 1.5 inch shorter than these for WRXs that are lowered. So if you have a WRX that's lowered, make sure you order the short version if you're going with these mud flaps. So one of the reviews on Amazon, like I read through all the reviews, and one of the reviews on Amazon mentioned that not all of the hardware is stainless steel. So like you have some plastic stuff, which is fine, and then these are obviously stainless steel. Right here, these are plastic, right? And these brackets are stainless steel, but these right here are not. So what I'm gonna end up doing, I shouldn't have to do this, but what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna paint those. I'm gonna use some of this stuff and just paint over them. You know, they might still rust, but it'll take them much longer if I, you know, give them a coat of this. And this is just because I had this laying around, so this is not something that everybody has to do, or I'm even telling you to do. I'm just gonna do it just because I know these over time are gonna end up rusting. So I'm gonna coat them with that and save myself the headache in the future. The first step for the front installation is to turn the wheels toward you so you can access the fender liner. Then, although not necessary, it helps to jack up the car so you can easily access the retaining clip underneath. This right here is the only part that I have left over out of the whole installation. So the point here is to make sure that you don't over torque anything so you don't end up needing parts. Take care when you're screwing the screws in and when you're, you know, hammering these in. In the way of tools, all we're gonna need is a screwdriver, and if you have one of these, it'll help. If you don't really need it. So if you divide your front hardware packet in half, this is what you get right here. So you're gonna have 4 short screws and you're gonna have a long screw. So you'll take one of the short screws and the metal washer, and you'll pre-stage it like that, and then the rest you'll put the big black washers. Then you have one long screw. The long screw, you'll do the same with that. You're gonna be using this spacer with it, so just pre-stage it like that. Then you're gonna have a bracket and one of these things, the retaining clips with a nipple. Okay, so the flat part of it goes on this side of the bracket, just like this. Just push it through and align it, just like that. We're gonna go ahead and remove all of the clips holding the fender liner in place. So there's one right here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's one right underneath here. These are screw type retaining clips, so you just hold the outer ring and unscrew like a, you know, like a regular screw, just enough to pop it out like that. Just enough to pop it out. I think a flathead will work better. From the bottom. There we go. So they come right out. Let me show you the bottom one. It's right there. So you take it out the same way as the ones on the side. Just unscrew it enough to pop it out. Done. Once you take all the factory retaining clips off, then you have to take the fender liner off, and it's very easy. It should come right off, just like this. Try not to scratch your paint job. That's enough right there. That's all you have to do. Just pull it off a little bit. Now we have to put in the 4 mud flap retaining clips. There are these little pieces. The little nipple, this part right here, is the part where the screw threads through. So this is going to end up going like this, just like that. So make sure that that part is pointing towards the inside of the car. So this is going to go like this. That. It's okay if it bulges out a little bit. It's all going to be just fine whenever we put the mud flap in and screw it down. But just try to line the holes. The 4th clip goes on the bottom, and I have to change camera angles to show you that. So the 4th clip is going right here. Right there. And since the screw is coming in from the bottom like this, then you have to make sure that little nipple is facing upward. So all we're doing is putting that on there like that. And we're gonna look underneath and see how aligned it is. It might not be exactly aligned. So it's aligned enough. Once the screw goes in through there, it'll catch part of that clip and it'll be good enough. Once you have all the brackets in place, give them all one last look and make sure they're aligned, and then you can put the fender liner right back exactly the way that you took it out. Be sure that when you're putting it back, you're not disturbing any of the retaining clips you put in already. Exactly the way that it came. Now it's time to install the L bracket. So all we're doing is aligning it with the holes from the bottom bracket. And I'll show you that in a second, but you're gonna put it between the fender liner and the car, just like this. It's gonna go like that, right? And I'm about to look underneath and make sure that the holes are aligned. So obviously it's not aligned, so I'm just gonna push it in until they're aligned. Like I said, this one right here, this particular bracket, the L bracket, all the holes are not going to align. It's just the way that the car is designed and the brackets are designed. So all you really have to do is just make sure there's enough room in there for the screw to catch. Which is what I'll do right now. See the screw going right there. Bam. As long as there's enough room for the screw to catch, you'll be okay. For this part right here, if you don't have the car raised, it's much harder. You would need a shorty screwdriver. So yeah, it's much easier if you have the car raised. You get the point. I'm not gonna fully attach it yet. I'm gonna do that once the mud flap is in place. It's always good practice to leave things loose until your final product is in place. That way you can make adjustments. There's your 4 retaining tabs. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you know, the other clip that you took off, you could leave that alone. That's just the old clip is gonna go right back in there. Alright, so now we're down to just the screws and the mud flap. So we're almost done here. So all we have are the 3 short screws left over and the long one. So the long one goes here to this one. See how this part is recessed right here? That's why it's longer. So the spacer is gonna end up going there. The mud flap's gonna go over it, and then this is gonna attach that way, and I'll show you that in a second. And then of course your other screws are going to be for the other 3 holes. This one right here, it's probably gonna touch that, maybe pierce it or go through it. It tells you that in the instructions. It's just part of the design. Getting ready to install the mud flap. Here it is. So if you didn't realize this already, the logo is gonna go facing the rear. So this would be my left mud flap as I'm going to install it here. So this is going to go like this. Right there. Just like that. So yeah, let's get to it. We're going to start with that bracket right there. Just put it through. Just until it catches. Just until it catches, and that's fine. And as you can see, yes, it does pierce the fender liner right there. No big deal. All right, so now this is where the spacer comes in. You're gonna grab the long screw. It's gonna go in that one, like that. Then the spacer goes through it on the other, on the back side, like that, and then it goes through the bracket. So all I'm doing is I'm making sure before I fully attach them that they're actually catching on the retaining clips in the back. Because if you don't do that and one of them is not aligned, or maybe you push it in inadvertently, then you're gonna have to take them all off to do it over. So, you know, all I'm doing is just enough so that it catches. So if you want to get your mud flaps as level as possible, when you're at this point, before you tighten down all of your screws, you can eyeball it, of course. But if you want to get it exact, you can make sure you're parked in a spot that's, you know, pretty level. And if you have a bubble level like this, put it on the ground and see what the angle is on the ground, which is, you know, just about right in the middle. And then do the same thing with your mud flap or the bottom. So as you can see right there, it's off. So I'm gonna, you know, basically fix it and then tighten it. And that way you'll have a perfectly aligned mud flap, and you do the same on all the other tires. Go until it's just tight and no more. Those brackets in the back are plastic, and you'll definitely strip them, and that'll be it. You'll need to get a new retaining clip. So make sure that you just tighten it until they're just tight and no more. And that's it for these 4 screws. And now I'm going to go underneath and tighten the one that I left loose at the beginning. The final step for the front is to make sure that you put back that retaining clip that we took off earlier, right there, that one. And if you didn't keep track, it's going to be the only one that doesn't have a screw type head on it. So after you divide the bag of hardware for the rear in half, this is what you end up getting. Very similar to the installation for the front. You're going to have, once again, a long screw with a spacer. You have your 4 short screws, and now we have these 2 different clips that allow us to have a retainer without having to pull the fender liner out. We have one of these again, and the same concept for the L bracket, which I will go over in a second. Alright, so obviously the rear tires are fixed. So in order to do the installation for the rear tires, we have to lift the car and remove the tire, because we don't have the luxury to rotate the tire to get to the rear fender. Luckily, we only have 2 clips to remove for the rear installation. We have this one right here that needs to come off, and we have this one right here that needs to come off. And you can get those off with just a flathead screwdriver. You can just put the flathead on the inner pin part of it and just kind of pop it out. Just like that. Of course, if you have one of these, it makes it easier. First thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the plastic retaining clip, the ones with a large nipple, and we're going to put it in this hole right here, the existing hole right there. And all you're going to have to do is kind of pry the bumper out like that and slip this behind it against the fender liner. So this is the part that the screw screws into, so that goes towards the back, just like I'm doing it right here. Now we're going to grab these 2 clips, and we are going to put them, one here and one there where you took out the clips from earlier. So all we're doing is pushing them into place just like that, and the screw is going to end up screwing into it. If you can't push it in by hand, use a rubber mallet or something. There you go. So I want to show you something about the L bracket. Your L bracket is going to go in this hole right there, that hole that's already down there. There's not a clip or anything on there already. It's just a hole from the factory, so it's gonna go there. So if you take your L bracket and kind of just put it on that hole where it's gonna go and just hold it there, you can see that it's angled outward, and that's not ideal. So you kind of want it straight up and down. You want it parallel to the wall back there. So all we're gonna do is just bend the bracket a little bit. You can see right there. So when you do the installation yourself, just kind of put the bracket on there and hold it in place, and it'll give you an idea as to how much you have to bend the bracket to get it to fit right. To bend the bracket, all I did is grab 2 pliers. Just hold one end with one set of pliers and then the other with the other, and just bend it a little bit. That's all you need. Alright, so we're gonna grab that little white clip. We didn't have one of these for the front, and that's gonna go in that hole we were talking about earlier, right there. So that's it. And just like we did for the front installation, we're gonna grab that little metal retaining clip and we're gonna put it the same exact way. You're gonna slide it on, aligning the holes just like that, with the L part, the little part that sticks out that way, because the screw is gonna go in from this side, from out here that way. Now we're gonna grab that L bracket and a short screw, and we're gonna screw it into that retaining clip, the white retaining clip we just installed. Go in there. Alright, so I'm gonna leave it loose like this until the mud flap is in place. Alright, once again, this is the same as the front. So the logo goes to the rear, so that when you're looking at the car from behind, you can see the logo. So this is gonna go like this, just like that, just like that. This little hole matches this little bump out here, and that spacer is gonna go right there. So it's gonna go just like that. We're gonna get all these screws and the washers together. And we're gonna grab our mud flap, and I am going to start with the L bracket. So grab one of the short ones. Again, we're just starting the screws. We're not actually tightening it all the way. Just starting them. Then I'm going to grab the long one. It's going to go through here, the long one. And then on the back side of it, we're going to put that spacer. And that's going to go there. It's important not to over torque these. Once you start feeling hard resistance, when we're ready to tighten them all the way, once you start feeling hard resistance, you need to stop, or you will strip those plastic brackets, and that'll be it. So I'm just going to tighten them just a little bit more, so that I'm still able to move them, but not permanently secured. So what I'm going to do now is check for level. Make sure it's level, make sure it's the way that I want it to look, and then I'll tighten all these. So I want to point something out that I'm sure it's going to happen to a lot of people. These plastic little retaining things that you put back here can very easily start spinning with the screw when you start screwing the screw in. So that's what just happened to me over here. And what you can do is just hold the piece, the retaining clip, hold it with like a flathead or something in the back. Just hold it steady like that while you screw from the front, so that you're actually screwing in. Make sure you pay attention to that. Make sure that you are actually screwing the screw into it all the way in, and not just spinning it with it and then thinking that you have it screwed in, leave it very loose, and then have this thing fall out on you or something like that. So all you have to do is just hold it with a flathead or something like that in the back, while you screw it in, and eventually it'll catch and start screwing in properly. So I got it just where I want it, so I'm gonna go ahead and, you know, torque these down. And of course the one underneath, don't forget that one. So I wanted to show you something real quick before I put this wheel back. When you pull your tire out, if you have a newer car, so if this is the first time that you're actually working on your car and you're pulling out the tire, like this is a 2017, I've rotated the tires, but they're still new, they're still the factory tires, still originally mounted on the rims that it came with. You're gonna notice that the tires and the rims are mounted in a very specific way from the factory, and they're balanced in a very specific way from the factory. And the same thing with the rotors. So you're gonna notice one of your studs has a marking, a paint marking on it. So you'll see what you see right there, that one does, the other 4 don't. And you'll see the same marking up on the rotor, just like you see there. That stud right there, it's the stud that's gonna house your wheel lock. Okay, so be sure to put the wheel lock on that one, the one that's painted, and be sure to put the valve stem on the one that's painted. So the one that's painted is gonna go on that one right there. So you're gonna match the valve stem with the paint with the wheel lock, and that'll retain your factory balancing configuration. Now, if you don't do this, you know, more than likely nothing's gonna happen. You know, you might not feel any effects of it, but you know, if you really want to prolong and retain that factory balance as long as possible, then you should definitely put them back. It'll save you from possibly having, you know, vibrations start on your car earlier than they should. If you don't already have a bin with all of your stock parts, you should definitely get one. And the little baggies that the hardware came in are perfect to put all of those retaining clips that you took out of the car. So you just put them back in there and throw them in your stock bin for future use if you ever decide to change the mud flaps or just return the car to stock. Alright, so this is what the mud flaps look like at eye level, fully installed. They definitely widen out the car a little bit and kind of give it a more aggressive stance. They look pretty good. Show what they look like from the front. Now these definitely look like they're aftermarket. So obviously, if the the screws are not a dead giveaway, I don't know what is, but they're obviously aftermarket. But it's not a bad or tacky aftermarket look. I think it looks pretty good. Here you can see how flexible they are. So they'll hold their shape when you're driving. They give just enough. These particular mud flaps are the black on black. Now, I decided to kind of accent my car with reds. So, you know, I should have bought the black on red. And at the time when I bought it on Amazon, they did not have it on there. So, note to self, on their the Rokblokz website, they actually have more color options, and the mud flaps are a little cheaper. So if you want something other than what Amazon offers, you can go straight to their website if you're interested in these mud flaps, and order whatever color you want from there for slightly cheaper. But yeah, black on black does not look bad. I don't mind it too much.